Welcome back to the Adam Schefter podcast as we come out of week 4, move on to week 5, and get ready for the NFL's international series with 3 games in London in each of the next 3 weeks. Jets, Vikings at Tottenham this week, the Jaguars, Bears at Tottenham the next week, and then the Pats and the Jaguars at Wembley Stadium the week after. So 3 9:30 Eastern football games on each of the next 3. So 3 9:30 a.m. Eastern football games in each of the next 3 weeks, all in London. And to that point, we will be joined today by the NFL executive Peter O'Reilly, who has worked in the league office for 20 years and currently serves as the Executive Vice President of Club Business, International, and League Events to discuss the NFL's international goals for the season and beyond as the league kicks off its international series in Week 5 with the Jets and Vikings in London. But before we get to Peter O'Reilly, we first get to our friend Tone Diggs, who's back to join us this week. Tone from the Pat McAfee Show, and he's back to quarterback another week of the Six Pack.
Jeffy, great to be back with you, and let's waste no time. Let's get straight into topic 1. And speaking of quarterbacks, how about the rookie Jayden Daniels? A quarter of the way through the season, what stands out to you about him?
Well, Tone, we might be talking about as good a quarterback as there is in the NFC. Correct? Like who right now in the NFC would you rather have than Jayden Daniels today in the NFC?
There's not a lot to come off the top of my head, especially with the Jordan Love issue. And obviously Goff had a great game last night. Purdy is playing well, but as far as like your future and moving forward, probably Purdy and Daniels is off the top of my head.
There's no clear-cut answer, and
No.
That's the point of this, right? A team and a franchise that was adrift, that didn't have a quarterback answer, that searched at that position, looking for somebody, finally has found the answer. And now we know why the Las Vegas Raiders would have been willing to give up multiple draft picks to reunite Antonio Pierce with his former Arizona State quarterback, Jayden Daniels. Now we know why there were people that compared Jayden Daniels to Lamar Jackson. And oh, by the way, in 2 weeks, the Ravens play the Commanders. And I can tell you right now that there were multiple front office executives and coaches who said to me that Jayden Daniels is Lamar Jackson 2.0. That is a line that I'm going to use on air for the next couple of weeks because there were many people who believe that. So we are looking at Lamar Jackson 2.0 against a conference, a division that has a lot of quarterback questions. And look, it's a week-to-week league, Tone. We know that. And so Jayden Daniels is coming off 2 incredible weeks where right now he looks better than anybody in the conference. And that could change starting this week. But it does seem like the Commanders finally have a long-term quarterback solution. It does seem like they've got a quarterback who's already set the completion percentage record early in the season. The guy's been everything that people thought he would be and then some. And oh, by the way, for the second straight year, the quarterback that goes number 2 looks like the real prize of the draft. And again, a lot can and will change. But early on, last year, we saw C.J. Stroud pick behind Bryce Young, shine. This year, we're seeing Jayden Daniels pick behind Caleb Williams, shine. We'll see how long he can make that happen, but it looks like the Commanders got it right.
Yes, and you talk about Lamar Jackson 2.0, and they have to be so excited in that Baltimore, Maryland, D.C. metro area for those two. And he just looks so calm and comfortable. Maybe not as cool as Cliff Kingsbury, his OC, but he looks so calm in that pocket. Topic number 2, speaking of quarterback, Shefty, on the Pat McAfee Show, I heard it, and I was like, what? Bill Belichick said that the Steelers have the best quarterback situation in the league. Now Fields is going up against the Cowboys on Sunday. What do we think Bill meant by that?
Well, before I answer that, I want to ask you as a Steelers fan, Tone, when he said that, what went through your mind?
I immediately, if we're being honest, I thought he was incorrect. Now, as far as depth, having Fields and Russell Wilson is great. And Justin Fields is playing smart football. He's doing what Artie Smith and the offense wants him to do. But me, coming off of 18 years of Ben Roethlisberger, my quarterback room situation, having a great backup is awesome. But having that stud at number one, having that top tier NFL quarterback who you could win a Super Bowl with, I will always take that quarterback room situation over one potentially that we have now.
So I gave some thought to what Bill said on the Pat McAfee Show, and here's what I came away with. Justin Fields has been very good so far for the Steelers. You're 3-1. You're
Yeah.
in a great spot. He's played good football. A game like Sunday, in other years, recent years, your team would have been dead in the water. You would have lost that game 28-10.
Sure.
The Steelers on Sunday came back, battled back, and Justin Fields played very well. When Bill says it's the best quarterback situation in the league, I think what he means by that is that Justin Fields can play the way he has early on, maybe even show some improvement, and that you've got a future Hall of Fame quarterback backing him up in Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson feels like he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So now we've got a quarterback who I believe right now is healthy. I don't know if he's got the official green light from the Steelers medical staff, but he's ready to go. So if there are any issues here with Justin Fields, they can move forward. But here's the subtle meaning in what I think Bill meant. Not only do you have a former first-round pick in Justin Fields who's played well, not only do you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson who's ready to play right now, but you've got these guys for a pittance. A pittance. They gave up a 6th-round draft pick to get Justin Fields. They gave up nothing to get Russell Wilson, and they're paying him $1 million. I'd have to look exactly. I don't have off the top of my head. What are they paying Justin Fields this year? It's a low number.
It's the last. It was they didn't pick up his 5th year, so it was whatever that would have been. I assume.
Here's what Bill meant to me, Tone. Look at what the Steelers are paying their 2 quarterbacks this year. They're paying Russell Wilson $1 million. The Broncos paying the rest of his salary. They're paying Justin Fields a base salary this year of $1.6 million. So you have Justin Fields and Russell Wilson basically for a combined $2.6 million.
It's insane, Schefter.
Okay, think about what some of these teams are paying their quarterbacks. We've got Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love making $55 million a year. The Steelers are paying Justin Fields and Russell Wilson $2.6 million. And so when Bill says it's the best quarterback situation in the league, I think that's what he means by it. You've got 2 good quarterbacks. Would you rather have Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen? Sure, absolutely. But $2.6 million, when you save $52.5 million, you can go spend and pay a lot of other players. You can re-sign other players. You have so much flexibility. So a quarterback room that's good in talent gives you great options elsewhere. And I think that's what Bill Belichick meant by that.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point, they were able to sign Patrick Queen. They were able to get a Pat Freiermuth deal done, the Cam Hayward deal done, the highest paid defense in the NFL. You're allowed to do that, and that makes your team as a whole. And I always trust that organization, Schefter.
And still be on the lookout for another wide receiver before the trade deadline.
Exactly.
You can do things that other teams can't there, Tone. That's exactly what he means.
Yeah, and a fun little tidbit, if you want it, Ben Roethlisberger was in the suite with us on Sunday watching the game, and when the Steelers got the ball back with, I think it was 2:20 left on the clock, he looked at me and he said, "This is the only time of the game that I miss it." He's like, once ball in my hands, 2 minutes left, because he's only behind Brady and Manning for career game-winning drives. He looked at me and said, "This is the only time that I missed the game. 2 minutes left, ball in my hand, chance to win the game."
So was Ben in the box as a guest of yours? Was he there for the Steelers? How'd that work out?
No, so Pat had a guest for the Bears game. A WWE wrestler came in because he was a huge Bears fan, and I think he liked that. So then he invited Ben Roethlisberger last week for the Steelers game. It might be something he's doing going forward, but it was, as a childhood Steelers and Ben fan, that was awesome. A situation there.
Had you ever met him before?
No, first time.
And what were your impressions?
He was incredibly nice, incredibly humble. He talked to all of us. He talked to all of our wives, had conversations, and he is very much a family man and dad now. He picks his kids up from school every day. He's his caddy for his son's golf team. He's very much all about family, all about being with his kids and doing all that kind of stuff.
Good for him. So he's got carpool in the morning like we do, right, Tony?
Yes, carpool in the morning and then picks his kids up from school as well. I did say, "Can you get back out there?" And he said, "I have to wear the Dan Marino knee-high spikes, basically." But speaking of lower bodies, topic number 3. There was some more news coming out early this week. What do we make of Christian McCaffrey's latest Achilles issues?
Here's the thing with Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Shanahan confirmed on Monday that Christian McCaffrey is dealing with Achilles issues in both legs, Achilles tendonitis, both legs. Now, this is not new. It's not like he suddenly developed this. It's part of the reason he went to Germany is to get it looked at because it was both legs and he wanted them examined. And so I think anybody who gives you a timeline on Christian McCaffrey right now is just guessing because he could go out when they begin to ramp him up this week, which they're going to try to do, and he could feel great, and we could get him in a couple of weeks, a few weeks. That's possible. Doesn't sound practical, but it is possible. It's also possible that he goes out there this week and says, I don't feel any better. I feel worse. Just like it happened the last time when he took off all of training camp, came back that week of the opener, thought he was going to be good, and all of a sudden he had the worst practice that he had experienced in terms of the pain in his calves and his Achilles. So how this is going to work, nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure. Everybody wants him back as soon as possible. And I can tell you that the 49ers believe he's going to be back. They do believe that. But I don't know that anybody can say with any degree of certainty that he'll be back in 2 weeks or 2 months or not at all. You just don't know. Everybody's rooting for him. And the one thing about Christian McCaffrey is there's not a player in the sport who's any more dedicated to his craft, to his body, to taking care of himself than Christian McCaffrey. So being Christian McCaffrey gives him the best chance to try to come back from something like this. But again, it's a big question mark. So there are no timelines. There are no projections. We'll wait and see. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later, but we won't know that till he's back on the practice field and we see what he's experiencing in both legs.
Yeah, I agree, Schefter. We all want to see him back. But until he does, I believe Jordan Mason is still leading the NFL in rushing for that 49ers team. So that's a nice little problem for them to have going forward. Speaking of the 49ers, they played the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. And for topic number 4, they are also dealing with an injury. Rashee Rice out indefinitely. What are the Chiefs' options with a three-peat on the line, Schefter?
Well, first and foremost, you mentioned Rice being out indefinitely, and it's a little bit like McCaffrey. Look, the Chiefs know that Rice is going to miss an extended period of time. And they were worried after the game that it was going to be a torn ACL. But I can tell you that after he went through testing on Monday, there was not any type of consensus and there was more information needed. And he's continuing to go for more and more medical opinions. And my understanding is he's not going to know the actual final diagnosis of his knee until Monday, meaning a week from now. So I think there's some hope that he avoided a torn ACL. They know it's not going to be great, but if it's not a torn ACL and if it's not as bad as they thought, well, maybe they can get him back on the field this season and maybe they can get him back for the postseason. And that would be incredible for the Chiefs and Rashee Rice, but it's up in the air right now exactly what he did to his knee. And the fact that it wasn't confirmed a day after the game that it was a torn ACL is a victory in and of itself for Rashee Rice and the team. Now we'll wait to see what happens. And I think what happens in the diagnosis might play into how the Chiefs approach it. Because if it's not a torn ACL and he's going to be back at some point later in the season, I think that reduces some of the need to go trade for another wide receiver. Now, if the diagnosis turns out torn ACL, out for the year, not going to play again in 2024, then I think the Chiefs have to ramp up efforts to go trade for somebody. And I think the player that they would trade for in that scenario, if he is out for the year, would also be contingent upon how some of these teams play. The Titans won on Monday night. They're still hoping to turn around their season. If they could turn around their season, they're not going to be willing to trade DeAndre Hopkins. The Panthers have played much better the last 2 weeks. If they can find a way to win some games, they're going to be less apt to deal Deontay Johnson or Adam Thielen. The Browns, if they could find a way to win, then they would be less apt to deal Amari Cooper. So I think they're kind of playing out on similar timelines. The Chiefs and Rice need more information about what his injury is, which will take another week. There are going to be some teams that play some games here in the next few weeks that will determine whether they're buyers or sellers before the trade deadline, November 5th. And we talked about this on the Pat McAfee Show on Monday. This blew my mind. Blew my mind. The NFL trade deadline this year
Yep.
is on the same day as the presidential election. Now, wow, what a day for news that is going to be. That could be
All
head
worlds.
combusting, right? Like that's all worlds merging together. Nothing's more important in this country right now than the presidential election. But oh, by the way, there's an NFL trade deadline that day, and there is an NFL trade deadline that day when in recent years, NFL general managers have taken a play from the NBA and Major League Baseball and been wheeling and dealing at the NFL trade deadline. So if the NFL trade deadline this year is anything like it was in the previous couple of years, then there's going to be an uptick in NFL activity. And we know there's going to be an uptick in activity with Steve Kornacki's khakis on that day.
Oh, I love Steve Kornacki, and we love the trade deadline. I don't know how it is for you because you are just constantly on your phone following things around, but I thought the same thing you did as far as Rashee Rice when obviously a lot better than everyone. Normally when it's a torn ACL, next day, boom, torn ACL. Yeah. We know. But now, and at least there's a potential good side to this for the Chiefs. At least they know week 3, week 4 before the trade deadline, and it didn't happen after the trade deadline. So now that they're going to get their answers, they can make decision moving forward going with that. But speaking of receivers, Schefty, topic number 5.
Oh.
This past summer, you talked about Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, who is just absolutely tearing up college football. Now we see Alabama's Ryan Williams. What is it about these 17-year-old wide receivers, Schefty?
I mean, look, I'd have to go back and ask some people, but have there ever been 2 players this young making this kind of mark and wowing people? Again, this past summer, we were on this podcast, and I had people who had been around Ohio State tell me Jeremiah Smith is the next Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe better. And I was like, wow. And then this past weekend, I watched Ryan Williams light up Georgia, and I was like, wow. Now, maybe these are just 2 flash in the pan guys, but I don't think so. When you talk to people about Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, they get awfully excited. And I haven't talked about too many 17-year-old wide receivers on this podcast, but sometimes guys do enough to get noticed. And these guys already are on the radar. When we showed up at ESPN on Sunday morning in the NFL green room, getting ready for Sunday Countdown, Randy Moss was blown away by these guys. Like when Randy Moss is blown away by Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, that tells you something. And the way that Ryan Williams moved his body control, like
the spin.
Holy moly, that was unbelievable. And the hand-eye coordination to pull down a catch that is out of midair when it's deflected like that. We'll be watching Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams for years to come here. And it's going to be exciting to see how they do this. I mean, why 17-year-old guys are that mature and that adept at picking up the game, and those guys are just blessed. That's the bottom line. They are blessed, and they are already pro prospects. I have to ask Field Yates this. If they were in the draft this year, how high Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams would go in the draft this year? This year, high, right?
Got to be first round, just based on potential. And in a weekend of college football that had so much action and so many plays, those 2, the Jeremiah Smith one-handed catch against Michigan State, and then the Ryan Williams touchdown against Georgia were 2 of the best. And there's another one at Texas, Ryan Wingo, who scored a touchdown against Michigan, who is a true freshman there too, who is also the young talent in college football is unbelievable.
Well, by the way, and I'm not a big college football guy. I hear about some of the bigger names. So I'm sure we are inadvertently and accidentally neglecting and not mentioning some other guys.
But
for that, I apologize. I'm just saying these 2 guys have made their mark already, and they've caught the attention of people around the NFL. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think anyone's going to argue with us talking about those 2 right now in this situation. And those 2 could be coming into the league at a very, very young age. Another person that came into the league at a very, very young age. Topic 6. How about Sam Darnold, Schefty? What stands out about his start during Minnesota's 4-0 beginning of the year?
Well, Tone, if I had said to you in the middle of August, we're going to sit down to tape the podcast on Tuesday morning, October 1st, and there are going to be 2 unbeaten teams left in the league. One of them is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs, and the other is going to be who? If I had given you 20 guesses, you would not have been able to guess the Minnesota Vikings.
Nope.
And if I had said to you, who is the comeback player of the year, if not one of the MVP candidates of the league, I would have given you 200 guesses and you wouldn't have guessed Sam Darnold. Okay? Sam Darnold has been one of the stories of the NFL season. And there's a lesson in this. The lesson is sometimes it takes quarterbacks a little bit of time. Oftentimes it's about the system they're playing in, the people they're around, the coaching they get to see if they can shine. Sam Darnold had a chance to shine in New York. He might have grown into the quarterback, but he saw ghosts there, in his own words, and he moved on to Carolina. And he might have grown into the player that he could become there. But we've seen what happens to quarterbacks in Carolina. It doesn't work out too well for them. And then he went to San Francisco for a year. And I could tell you that the 49ers really liked him, but they had Brock Purdy on the field. They didn't need him. So when his contract was up, Sam Darnold chose to go to Minnesota, which was losing Kirk Cousins, which was a wise career decision. The Vikings drafted J.J. McCarthy, who has a great future still, tears his ACL in training camp, and lo and behold, here we have Sam Darnold stepping in to become the comeback player of the year, to take the Vikings to a 4-0 record, and now, Tone, kick off the London series this week on Sunday morning against Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. He's been one of the great stories of the season. I think Kevin O'Connell deserves a lot of credit. There aren't many coaches that you want coaching up a young quarterback to get him to this spot. He's rebuilt Sam Darnold's confidence, and we will get a chance to see Sam Darnold Sunday morning at Tottenham versus the New York Jets as the NFL kicks off its run of games in London for the next 3 weeks.